We started the week looking at photosynthesis and fiber. You may remember this reaction somewhere back in the gray matter where you have CO2 from the atmosphere and water in the ground, energy from the sun, chlorophyll in the plant, forming glucose and water. And this is how starch in plants is made. And those glucose molecules can be digestible or indigestible depending on how they are bonded to each other, as starch or as fiber, whether they're alpha-linked or beta-linked. Somewhere down the line, we may be talking about viscous, fermentable, as well as insoluble fiber, just not this semester. I talked to you about resistant starch, alpha-linked glucose molecules that resist enzymatic hydrolysis. They don't get broken down in the intestine. They move into the large intestine and can be broken down by the bacteria. They are creating new bacteria. They can also be referred to as prebiotics. Looked at a number of benefits of soluble versus insoluble fiber, but the one that I wanted you to remember in particular was the fact that soluble fiber may help lower blood cholesterol levels. It has to do with its binding to bile, which is made from cholesterol itself. Compared the nutrients in whole grains versus enriched white and unenriched white flour. And your discussion questions are online. Then today we looked at proteins. The video reviewed the digestion and absorption of proteins, how it gets denatured before it can be digested. It has to be broken down into those individual amino acids before it can go into the circulatory system. In the circulatory system, they get absorbed and transported to the cells, and within the cells, depending on what the body needs, it will be made into other proteins. The chemical digestion of protein begins in the stomach. Review the digestion, what happens, how we get to those individual amino acids. Nitrogen balance. We have positive nitrogen balance, nitrogen equilibrium, and negative nitrogen balance. It depends on what's going on in your body and what it needs to do with the nitrogen from those amino acids. A muscle is 20% protein, which is about 105 grams of protein. So how much do you really need in your daily diet? Probably not as much as you think you do. I talked about kwashiorkor, how it's protein malnutrition, but a child with kwashiorkor can be rehabilitated. And you were asked to discuss this in your questions. Summarizing what we covered between the video and class is on this slide. And I asked you if you wanted to talk about your food journals or your protein discussion questions first, or it didn't matter. Apparently there were results somewhere. What we did was break into groups, and you talked about your food journals, what your experience was like being intolerant or allergic. I look forward to reading those papers, and your discussion questions for this topic are online. Please answer them. They may be very helpful when your exam on October 20th comes. But next week, we begin carbohydrates. On Tuesday, we'll talk about diabetes. Please look at the case studies, and we'll complete this by talking about carbohydrate storage and other disorders. Your journals are due by Sunday. Let me know how your week went. There is a Flipgrid, which I would love to hear from you and see you. Have a good weekend and take care of yourselves.